and welcome to another episode of the Unintangibles. I am your host, Mo Aurora, and joining me, as always, my main man, Jeff Shuella. How's it going, Jeff?
I'm doing okay. Fantasy-wise, I don't know. After 1 week, I got slammed in the FFPC. So I joined this new league. It's
right into it. Okay, go ahead, Jeff. Tell us about your league.
I'm kind of pissed because look, I've been playing fantasy for like over 15 years. PPR, never done it before, and I'm dead last in total points. And I took it on the chin so badly. And I'm like, I feel like a lost puppy right now. Like, I feel terrible. Like,
so who are some guys in your lineup that didn't do well?
Everyone didn't do well. I'm like,
who's the main guys that you're counting on?
Starting to second guess myself with everything. I'm like, who am I?
But who do you have? I'm asking.
Well, I think people in my league must think I'm a total amateur. But okay, so I had David Johnson, Travis Kelce. Those are my first two picks. They were very
terrible. I can't believe you got those guys. Go
on. Chris Hogan, Josh Gordon, Marshawn Lynch. So basically, all of my big players, they Matthew Stafford was my quarterback.
Okay, that's a tough one.
Matt Prater was my kicker.
Okay.
Absolutely everyone underachieved. It was terrible.
Okay, that's tough, and that's not how you want to start your season. But it's only week one, man. It's only week one. I had a day like that in one of my leagues. It was just like okay from everybody, but like not good from anybody. And I ran into a really good opponent. It happens. But, I mean, Travis Kelce, well, like no tight ends were good this week, at least none that were drafted. It was all waiver wire guys. But, David Johnson's still one of the four best players in the league. He'll be fine, Josh Gordon scored a touchdown, I think Josh Gordon turned out to be right on the line between I'm glad I started him and I'm glad I sat him. He did exactly enough for everybody to be happy. But, you have to be encouraged by the touchdown, right? Like he's you might have Josh Gordon, right? And
What's your thought here? Because my bench is 10 deep. They have 10-man benches. What's your thought on a 10-man bench?
Sorry about that. I hit the cough button for too long. 10. That's a deep bench. It's a deep bench. How many teams?
12 team.
Okay.
So at the draft, you drafted 240 players basically are gone.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. So you end up having like 5 or 6 running backs and receivers on your team?
Pretty much, yeah. So like I even more room to second guess myself for my starting lineup every week.
So I'll tell you that because like in my 16-team league, with benches not that deep, we roster about the same sort of people, right? Because also it's IDP, so whatever, right? But like about 225 to 240 offensive players are on rosters in my league. And when the rosters are that big, it's like everybody worth owning is owned.
Yeah.
And you have to expect that you might have 2 or even 3 guys on your team that you don't like at all, but you just have to own somebody, right? So it's weird. 10-man benches is almost like if a bench is so deep, it's almost like you don't have a bench at all. Because in a shallower league, there'd be more on the waiver wire, right? And that's tough, man. It's like having a whole second squad that you got to have at the ready.
Yeah, I have some guys who are stashers for sure. If injuries happen, I have some guys who are there in committees. It's tough with a 10-man bench. So now I have a FAAB is coming up. Later in about 2 hours, the FAAB report, FAAB bids need to be placed.
Yeah.
And I wanted to discuss what FAAB is with you. It's actually my first time doing FAAB.
Me too. This is good.
So, you didn't do FAAB before in your auction?
First time. I've done FAAB in baseball, but I haven't played baseball in a while.
Okay.
And I was never as good at baseball pools as football anyway. But
so FAAB is free agent auction budget, right? That's pretty much what
free agent auction budget, free agent acquisition budget.
Acquisition budget. So basically, in my league, I'm given $1,000 FAAB dollars, and you can place silent bids up until tonight. And we'll see. I'm not even sure. I mean, I can give you a list of guys that I'd consider dropping, and I want to hear from you if you think they're even worth adding to begin. So, did you want to get into that right now, or?
Yeah. Who do you got? Who do you got in mind?
So the two players I would consider cutting, even though I'm not even super comfortable, Corey Grant, who's Jacksonville running back, even though Leonard Fournette is now injured.
Okay.
TJ Yeldon is the guy, and I always thought TJ Yeldon was more of the passing down guy. And I thought if Fournette was going to go down, Corey Grant would be the first couple downs pounder guy, but apparently so far it hasn't been the case. So
yeah, I think if you had the choice of picking either of them up, I'd probably want Yeldon. But I mean, Yeldon might have been taken already, and Grant's available, and if you have a spot, worth a pickup.
So would you? But that's the thing. I mean, I have to figure out. I have a couple of guys here like Jerron Brown or Brandon Marshall in the Seahawks, Jalen Richard. I do own Marshawn Lynch, so maybe it's smarter having Jalen Richard instead of Corey Grant.
Well, here's what I'll say about guys like that, and I'll bring this back to FAAB, right? And this is my first time playing FAAB as well, so if I'm wrong, please, viewers, let me know why. But
help us out.
But my thought is, so like a lot of the guys that you named, a lot of these fringe droppable guys and addable guys, it's like there's not that much difference between one or the other. There's just you're taking your temperature of this guy or that guy at any given moment. And I think if it was just waivers, and whether or not you even have a waiver limit or just one that like a limit that you probably won't hit, I've found that most leagues that I'm in, if they have a certain amount of trading, nobody ever hits their max waiver moves, right? So, if it was waivers and it was essentially limitless waivers, yeah, maybe I pick a guy like that up, right? And one of these guys that you're talking about. But if it's going to cost me FAAB money, I wouldn't do it, right? And then maybe you'll pick him up for 0 if you can bid 0, or maybe you pick him up for 1, however your league works. But like, if that's the same as a waiver move, sure. If it's going to cost you any kind of FAAB money to get one of these fringe guys, then I don't see what's worth it. You have to really have an opinion of one versus the other to do that.
Okay, so in your opinion, I have two quarterbacks that got banged up last week. I have Stafford and Marcus Mariota.
Oh, yeah.
That's tough. So almost every quarterback is taken right now except for Case Keenum, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Do I spend a little FAAB money on these guys because this is all pretty much who's left for the season?
Okay. So what do you hope to accomplish? Are you like really trying to get a win in week 2, or are you like trying to just manage your season-long roster?
For some depth at quarterback, in case Mariota or Stafford gets really seriously knocked out, I would need another quarterback on my roster. So
so the Bucks play the Eagles this week. I don't know if you'd want to start Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't know if you'd expect the same kind of.
I'm starting Stafford.
Yeah.
Really for depth at the position if they get hurt, because almost all of them are gone right now.
So if Mariota's just a backup in your lineup right now, and you're looking at Case Keenum or Ryan Fitzpatrick, you might as well stick with Mariota.
Okay.
Are you like, okay, week 1 was terrible. Let's talk about Tennessee, because there's a couple things we can talk about. We can talk about Mariota, we can talk about Derrick Henry, and everybody's concerned, right? And if there's no Mariota, then you write off everybody, right? Corey Davis, no chance. Whoever they find in tight end, Jonnu Smith, good luck, right? But for now, so if Mariota comes back, if he's not hurt too badly, if it was a bad game, was it so bad that, like, can you honestly write off Mariota's season? Can you write off Derrick Henry's season?
No, I don't think so. I think because of just the injury now, he's got an injured elbow, but I can't keep those guys off. It's one game in. They can't. I heard today on the Harris podcast that Kirk Cousins had a terrible week 1 last week, and he ended up as QB6. So,
yeah, last year you mean, and then he was QB6.
Last year. So, yeah.
These things happen all the time. Look, we talked about it on Monday, but again, remember, week 1, and we're talking about a league in which the starters don't play in preseason, and because of safety rules, everybody practices a lot less. And it's like, you can't be surprised in week 1 if teams or units or parts of units don't look good. And that's why you saw things like Tampa beating New Orleans. There's one particular weakness they managed to exploit a lot that led to that, or Tennessee not looking good. Well, people talk about offensive lines, and they try to talk about like the collections of talent when there are 5 name offensive linemen on a team. But the most important thing to offensive lines working well together is continuity. And you're not going to find a lot of continuity in week 1, right? And so for a team like Tennessee, it could have just been, the offensive line had a bad day week 1. Derrick Henry had a bad day behind it. I know that with the weather, all the delays that they had, I'm sure that helped the Dolphins more than the Titans. One, because when they're back chilling in their locker rooms, one team's at home and the other's on the road. We're not athletes, but we're comedians. We know what it's like to be on the road. Even if you're perfectly comfortable, you're not at home, right? A guy like Derrick Henry, there are some running backs that one of the things that makes them good is that they get better as the game goes on. And you never notice that the running backs that have that reputation are never small, shifty, skilled guys. No, it's always pounders, right? Like the guys, not every big bruising running back has great endurance, but the ones who succeed in the NFL, they do so because it's not just their size. Their size also, they also have more endurance. And Derrick Henry is a guy, you see him as a fourth quarter guy, as a second half guy. He's just this big dude who can stand up to the violence of football. But in a game where the opposing defense was getting 90-minute breaks every 15 minutes, how is a guy like him supposed to start to, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you can chalk it all up to a bad day. It's all it is. Deion Lewis looks good, but he's still a guy who might get hurt, And, when Mariota comes back, there's more continuity. There's a little bit more, like, there's still talent all over the field there. Maybe one less guy with Delaney Walker going, but, like, dude, talent drops off. Talent drops off in the NFL so fast once the season starts. That's why it's really hard to cut bait on talent too early.
He's at home to Houston this week. Okay, so they're a good defense. Taylor Lewan, you're talking about the offensive line not having chemistry yet, but Taylor Lewan, so he left the game because of a concussion last week. That's a huge loss.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I would start to panic a little bit if they could not get anything going offensively this week.
But here's the thing, though. Like, let's say you were to cut. So Mariota, it's easy, right? Because he's a quarterback. He wasn't that highly ranked to begin with. You can just replace him with another quarterback, right? Derrick Henry's a tough guy to get away from because he was he's everyone's second running back. You know what I mean? He was like a 4th round pick or something, 4th, 5th round pick. So the problem is, I've heard on podcasts this week, by the way, people saying, sell Derrick Henry, like cut bait right now. And I'm like, that's terrible advice. That's terrible advice because his value is as low as it's ever going to be. There's people dropping Derrick Henry, I'm sure. You know what I mean? But like trading him for nothing, that's terrible. You might as well hold on to him because you're not going to get anything for him now anyway. And then what happens if he has a great week 2, week 3, week 4? All of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to trade him at all. Maybe he's actually good. Maybe he had one bad week because in an NFL season, Derrick Henry, who's good but not great, is going to have maybe, 3 or 4 bad weeks, 3 or 4 mediocre weeks, and hopefully 5 or 6 good weeks,
Yeah. Obviously, I wouldn't make any major trades right now. I don't understand. I think it's bad advice for anyone to let go of anyone, honestly, at this point.
I think so. I think your perception of a player is closer to what you thought when you drafted him than it is to what he looked like in week 1.
So would you make a speculative FAAB ad on Corey Coleman, just signed by the Patriots?
You know what? I would not because, I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence in Corey. I'll have to see it to believe it. I don't want to waste my time. And, I'd rather just miss him and be wrong. But also, I keep hearing rumblings that Dez is going to go to New England.
Wow.
There's still just rumblings. I'm not hearing anything for real. I'm nobody. Nobody, you know what I mean? If I know it, anybody can know this, which means it's not true. But there's a lot of that stuff the last day or two about Dez in New England. I don't know why.
I never saw any of those reports. Were they on Twitter?
Yeah, I guess. Just, it's bullshit, man. It's all, trust me. There's nothing verified. It's all just hearsay. But I'm just saying that in the last, 24 hours, I've been getting a vibe that Dez Bryant's telling people that he's going to New England. Like, that's the vibe I'm getting. And I'm like, that's okay.
I think it's fair to say that a Seahawks wide receiver or tight end is worth adding this week. I think Doug Baldwin is in really rough shape.
Yeah.
Maybe for the rest of the year. I think Jerron Brown or Brandon Marshall are worth an ad, man. Or that.
Yeah. And that's assuming that Lockett is already owned, right? In most leagues.
Right. Yeah. So
Sizing up. Tyler Lockett was probably drafted, and I'm sure he's the first guy off the board if he's not. But Brandon Marshall is worth an ad. Do you have any opinion on the Seattle tight end situation? Is Will Dissly for real?
Yeah, well, he might be actually. He might start getting some targets because they have no one to throw to. So someone.
Okay, but they were talking about Nick Vannett earlier. What happened to him? Did he just?
Yeah. So these tight ends, I barely know their names.
Yeah, I see. That just seems like a headache that I want. I mean, look, if you're in a situation where people who are scrambling to fill tight end are going to look to guys like Will Dissly. If you had Delaney Walker, maybe Will Disley's a guy available to pick up or whatever, right? But like, that's a situation. Seattle's tight end, I just feel like avoiding because for now, so you have the preseason darling Nick Vannett, you have one game wonder Will Dissly, you have Ed Dickson who's going to come back at some point in the season, and I feel like, I'm not excited about any of them, but they're all three guys who can play tight end for Seattle, so Seattle might feel fine, but like. So I don't know.
Jerron Brown or Brandon Marshall. I mean, if you could add one of them right now, who would it be?
Probably Marshall. Just because I know that there's some overlap between what he does and what Jimmy Graham did last year. Yeah, I'd say Brandon Marshall.
Do you have any FAAB dilemmas this week or not particularly?
Not really, but I have some more players to talk about, both exciting and troubling.
Let's do it. Okay.
Covered Mariota and Derrick Henry. It was a bad week for players named Benjamin. Travis Benjamin with a couple of terrible drops in LA. I almost said San Diego again. But more troubling because a guy drafted a little bit higher, a little bit more relevant, but in a situation that looks awful. Buffalo Bills wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin. How do you feel? Buffalo is a situation that's really bad. They look bad enough that you might be like, man, Buffalo's going to be bad. But even that would be an overreaction still. But that doesn't really... The idea that Buffalo isn't as bad as they were in week one, that's not exactly heartwarming as a Kelvin Benjamin owner, but how should I feel about him?
We've seen what bad looks like, and bad still pick up garbage time, though. I mean, we've seen bad quarterbacks. We've seen bad quarterbacking. We've been watching Blake Bortles for a lot of years.
Yeah.
We've seen teams get blown out, and some of their players still get that garbage time. It can't be like it is every week. So I heard a great stat on the Roto Underworld podcast that said that Kelvin Benjamin was 12th or something in the top 12 this week of wide receivers' air yards per target.
Okay.
They are throwing Kelvin Benjamin balls. Kelvin Benjamin, those 50-50 grabs, So it can't get worse than last week, honestly. Like,
yeah,
I would still hold on to Benjamin personally, in my opinion. I don't think he's that bad. I'm not going to go around saying someone's going to catch passes, but it can't be like it was last week, honestly.
I think the problem with Benjamin is, so I agree that even on bad teams, number one wide receivers on bad teams are underrated. That's like if you're the Oakland A's of fantasy football, that's like a market inefficiency. Number one wide receivers on bad teams, right? But the problem that I have is with Benjamin is like you'll never know when you can start him. Because like there isn't even like I don't even envision like he could be good. He could be good 1 week, bad 1 week, good, bad, and then it totals out to like our wide receiver 2 status or something, right? But I'm never gonna feel like, man, Kelvin Benjamin, 3 weeks in a row, he's just been a stud. Like, you know what I mean? That's the problem. And I feel like he's good. Keep him on your bench because in your bye weeks, and when you don't have a choice, you have to play him. That's when you're comfortable playing him.
I could actually see Kelvin Benjamin getting traded during the season again. I could actually see this happening. I don't know where Zay Jones is on the progress, but I could see Benjamin, some team maybe trading away like a draft pick for Benjamin if they need some receiver depth because Benjamin himself isn't that bad. He's still 27 years old. He's proven that he's got a huge catch radius. He can still be effective.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him getting traded at some point.
Yeah, he's still like on a rookie contract, right? He's not like getting paid a bunch.
I don't know. What is this? His fourth year, fifth year? How long is that rookie? How long is a rookie contract?
4 with an option for 5 for first rounders. I don't remember if he was the first rounder. I think he's in his 4th year.
Yeah, he's not as bad as people think he is. He's just in a
right. But like,
situation.
My point, the reason why I say that is because the fact that he's cheap, supposedly, we were wrong because we don't fact check anything. But if he is cheap, then he would be attractive as some other team's 2nd or 3rd wide receiver. But he's not a great wide receiver to like. If you're Buffalo and you're rebuilding, and you're however many years away, you don't need to hang on to Kelvin Benjamin's next 2 or 3 years. Like, you might as well get rid of him. I don't think Zay Jones, his progress matters at all, because I think either way they either have nothing or they have a little bit. But like, yeah, you're right. That's a good idea. And I feel like trading is back in the NFL. There's a while where it kind of went away. No teams ever did it, but now it seems like trades are possible again.
I like it. Yeah, I've seen a little more of that recently.
That's one thing I want. I want more in-season player-for-player trades by the NFL. We have so much fun doing fantasy football for that very reason. NFL GMs, you should try it too. It's fun. You make your team better. It's awesome.
I find that like NFL is so merciless though with the injured reserve. I mean, like, okay, Farrell Cooper was placed on injured reserve. I just read before his ankle. I don't know if he broke it. I don't know what happened there, but you get placed on injured reserve. Your chances you're not coming back unless you're on the designated to return. But most of these guys are not. So like,
no, but that's the thing. Is anybody other than like a superstar, you got to figure when they get an injury like that, like, okay, you're gone for the rest of the year. You don't exist to me anymore.
Hunter Henry designated for return though. That should be pointed out.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah.
He might be a week 11 waiver wire ad or somebody. I don't know. Let's talk about some guys who look good and now people are excited about. So we talked about Philip Lindsay on Monday, didn't we?
We did. Yeah, we did.
Okay. So how about another guy then? Austin Ekeler looked really good in a backup role, a defined backup role, but still very productive. Is that sustainable? Do we have a potential Tevin Coleman type as far as like great handcuff, but productive in his own right?
Yeah, he has quote unquote like standalone value for sure. I feel like he's good for 4 to 6 targets a game, a few carries.
Yeah.
And if Melvin Gordon obviously gets hurt, he could be, an RB1 potentially in terms of volume in a good offense. That's a guy who is on waivers, Mo, for FAAB. So do I spend some FAAB dollars on Austin Ekeler?
Okay, who would you drop for him?
Well, my 2 drop candidates are Corey Grant or Alfred Blue, probably.
I think I'd drop Grant and pick up Ekeler. I'd rather have both of those guys. I'd rather have Ekeler than both of those guys, I should say. But I think I'd rather keep Blue than Grant because Blue's not very exceptional, but that offense in Houston can be. And that's the argument for Lamar Miller. He's not exceptional, but it's a good offense to be a part of. Well, if anything were to happen to him, then Alfred Blue could be good.
Yeah, so even with the Fournette injury, you're telling me you would drop Corey Grant ahead of Alfred Blue?
Because he'd be sharing it with Yeldon. Yeah. And is the idea to have a guy in week 2 or that you don't start, or is the idea to have a guy that it turns out in week 7 or 8 is a starter?
Yeah, he's a stash. He's definitely not starting this week. So maybe what I might do is maybe I'll make a play for Brandon Marshall.
Yeah.
I'll drop Alfred Blue, and I'll try and pick up Ekeler and drop Corey Grant.
Okay. So yeah, we're bullish on Ekeler. He's worth owning. And
how much would you drop on Ekeler?
What's that?
How much would you drop on Ekeler if I have $1,000 FAAB dollars? Would you?
Yeah, $1,000 FAAB dollars.
$50.
Let's say 75.
75 for Austin Ekeler.
I mean, it's your money, so I'm a lot more comfortable splashing it around.
Yeah, but why not? Well, why not, man? I mean,
the principle that I'm applying. Sorry, do you want to go ahead?
Look how many players are already out of the pool. There's 40 players out of the pool. I mean, what are the chances that one of these guys is going to pop like crazy? I mean, it does happen every year, but.
So, okay, you bring up a good point. So here's the thing. So I've done some FAAB investigation, right? Not for this podcast, but previously I've just like been on the internet and I'm like, yo, somebody tell me more about FAAB. And here's the thing that bugs me about the way people talk about FAAB is it's the same mistake that the internet makes in general talking about fantasy football is they talk about like I asked somebody once, like, what's a good strategy for FAAB? Do you want to blow your money trying to get the guys who emerge in week 1, 2, 3? Or do you want to save some of it for over the course of the season and then like have money to blow getting those guys at like the whatever deadline there is, like at the end of the regular season. And all the people that were like, oh, you got to blow it early because these guys who come out of nowhere and become studs, like you get to have them all year or whatever. I'm like, but you're assuming that the guy you pick up in week 1 or 2 or 3 is going to be that guy, right? And so that's the flaw in that logic. Like if you knew that like Quincy Enunwa is going to become a wide receiver 1, fine, spend all your FAAB. But you don't know that. You think it's always going to be 10 targets for him and 1 for Robbie Anderson? No, of course not, right? So he's worth a pickup, but he's not worth blowing your whole money. So I think I wouldn't want to spend, even if I'm talking like just go for it. If I did 3 waiver moves all year that I spent my FAAB on, I'd want to spend like, it'd be like 25%, 25% of my FAAB budget now to get somebody. If I'm trying to get somebody midway through the season, I'd spend 50% of my FAAB budget to get somebody. Towards the end of the season, I'll spend 100%. But I think you got to save it because you have people talk about how much more valuable it is to pick up a guy early in the season and have him be on your roster and play for you all year. But that's a once in a blue moon. That's a once a season for not even every team in the league occurrence. Right, most of the guys you pick up, you maybe use them once or twice, you drop them again. So you gotta play according to that reality, not the fantasy that you're gonna pick up a guy in week 1 and you're gonna ride into a championship.
Yeah, I'm not picking up any of these guys to ride to a championship. I think I would pick them up because there's not many guys left in that pool to pick up. It's what it looks like right now, and Ekeler might become something honestly, and I really believe that someone on the Seahawks is going to emerge as a productive player, either Jerron Brown or Brandon Marshall.
Right, but okay, so you can't spend all your FAAB getting either one of them. If there's a big
I would drop. I would make bids of 75 for each Ekeler and one of those receivers. Why not?
Ekeler and Marshall, sure. I'm less confident in Jerron Brown, but maybe for 50, I'd try for him.
Well, Brandon Marshall could be this year's Jimmy Graham for Russell Wilson, right? He could be that body. So
like 200 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns.
Well, Tyler Lockett is not going to be the red zone guy.
No, they don't have one without Marshall.
They don't have one, so it's going to be either a tight end or it could be Marshall. I mean, I didn't look at Marshall's highlights, but he did play a game. I think he had like 6 for 80 or something in a touchdown.
Yeah, he had a touchdown. I only saw his touchdown, but he looked like the Brandon Marshall that we've known for all this time. He looked good. He didn't look like an old man trying to still play football.
He looked good.
Like Brandon Marshall.
I have no confidence in Doug Baldwin this year, so I may do something like that.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Brandon Marshall might be a really good pickup, actually. You're talking me into it now. Okay, here's another guy, though. The guy from your favorite NFL team, although they didn't look great on Monday, but Kenny Golladay of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Tell me what you thought about Kenny Golladay, both as a Lions fan.
Great, man. I think Golladay. I'm not saying he surpassed either of Jones or Tate, but Jones or Tate have their brand market name right now. Mm-hmm. And Golladay, he looked great. He made some amazing plays when the game was still on the line, still in the balance. Mm-hmm. He knocked that one dude, forced a fumble. Oh no, sorry, he recovered a fumble and he forced the fumble.
Yeah, it was the interception, and he hit the guy, causing the fumble, and he may have recovered it as well. But
he looks he could be the most athletic receiver they have, mm-hmm. And I think come season's end, yeah, why not? You could say that Kenny Golladay could be a top 20 wide receiver at the end of the year.
Could be, he could be. I think what might happen, if I look at like the range of outcomes here. So if Golladay improves on last year but doesn't actually become like relevant himself, he's just enough to vulture from somebody, he would take more from Marvin Jones than he would Golden Tate. Would you agree?
Agreed, yeah.
Okay. But if Golladay actually broke out and became a legit fantasy option himself, I think what would happen is you would end up with, I think for that to happen, that would mean for Golladay to have a good fantasy starter season this year, that means Detroit has to be good. And I know week 1 was terrible, but like it was also week 1 for that head coach. Maybe he learned a lesson, right? Who knows about preparing his team and shit. But if Detroit were good, then they would just, instead of having 2 wide receiver 2s, they would have 3 flex wide receivers.
Yeah.
And so I think Detroit might become even more confusing a receiving game than before.
I think that one of those guys is going to get traded. I think Jones or Tate is going to go. I know Tate was rumored to be going to the Patriots. And the
Everybody's rumored to be going to the Patriots. I just said Dez is going to the Patriots.
Dez or Golden Tate. Look, I mean, Brady can really make anyone work. If he can make Philip Dorsett work, But at the same time, I don't see the Lions having a 1A, a 1B, and a 1C. Like, it seems a little redundant. Not that Marvin.
No, I'm not saying that that's the plan. I'm saying that that's how it might work out, because I think, it's not that it's a plan. It's like, it would be a very poor man's Denver having who do they have? They had Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and Eric Decker.
Yeah.
Or did Sanders come in after Decker left?
Well, this is Wes Welker was way before these guys, right? So I think
Welker was already long gone. Yeah.
Okay, I think it was Decker, Sanders, and Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. I think so. Yeah. Maybe not. It might have. Anyway, the point is, there's enough passing to go around for 3 wide receivers on a given team. On a team like Detroit, which is going to be very spread the ball around, that kind of offense, if it's good, can produce 3 flexes, as opposed to the 2 wide receiver 2s they have now. It could be 3 flexes, which could be really frustrating.
Yeah, I think Kenny G's going to emerge this year, man. I really do. I
think Kenny Golladay, it's the same thing like a lot of those like crowded running backfields, which is redundant, crowded backfields. There's Detroit's another great example. LeGarrette Blount is a good hard yards getter. Theo Riddick is a great scat back. Well, if Kerryon Johnson can be pretty good at both, then he can be on the field the whole time, right? Golden Tate is a great possession guy. Marvin Jones is really good downfield. If Kenny Golladay can be pretty good at both, he might be your number one. He's got more number one potential than the other two, because the other two don't really have number one potential.
He's got the athleticism, man. He's got the big jump. He's got a big vertical, and he's got a big wingspan too. I think Kenny Golladay, he could definitely emerge. He could. I mean, Ebron's not there this year, so not that Ebron leaving like opens a bunch of red zone targets, but it maybe opens a few more too. So
yeah, I think so, and I think. So going back to we've kind of been all over the place here, because we've sort of been talking about waiver ads, and we've sort of been talking about guys who are probably on a bench and are thinking about starting.
Yeah. We're at around the 30-minute mark of our episode.
Right. So yeah, we should wrap it up pretty soon. But I'm just trying. So just make the point, because we were talking earlier. I was talking earlier about FAAB and stuff like that, not blowing your budget early and stuff. I realized that I was addressing leagues that maybe like there's a certain anti-trading bias. There are a lot of leagues out there that it's just drafting and waivers the rest of the year, right? Yeah. They don't really trade. They don't really do that. And I could not imagine being in any league like that. The idea of playing in a fantasy football league and not being able to email you and like talk trade or whatever, like that's why I play it is for the trading, right? And so, but one of the reasons why I'm further convicted in my point about like don't blow your FAAB money on Austin Ekeler now, because if Ekeler even if you miss him now, somebody else picks him up and he turns out to be good, he'll still be available later if you want to trade for him.
There's no trading in this league.
This is FFPC, right? Yeah. Oh, that changes things.
So there's no trading. So I think I'm going to make a bid on Ekeler, and I'm going to make a bid on Brandon Marshall. And we'll see.
Why can't you play in the one league that's the exception to this great point that I'm making? God damn it, Jeff.
Well, if you can't, I kind of missed the whole trading thing, but in this league you can't. So I just kind of wanted to try out.
Well, then you know what? Ekeler's as good a shot as anybody. Yeah. I would even up the bid to like $100.
$100 for Ekeler. What about Brandon Marshall? 75.
Yeah, because 75 is more a price if I need him now, but it might not work out. 100. That's like I need him now, but also like he'll be good all year. He'll be something all year.
Eckler's a good PPR guy too, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Passes.
I think the Chargers offense can sustain a flex-worthy backup running back.
Okay.
Especially if they're the second, third, fourth wide receiver situation there, if that remains unclear. Mike Williams, poor man's Kenny Golladay as far as a good week 1 debut, but that's still unclear. And if Tyrell Williams is going to be dropping passes and Travis Benjamin dropping passes, they might need Ekeler more, It
really looks like Phil Rivers likes Ekeler a lot. Like, I'm not saying he's Danny Woodhead, but he seems to he's definitely part of every game plan every week.
Oh yeah, well I just think throwing to the running back in general. I think that's one thing that you can expect from the Chargers this year is throwing to the running back, and I think a lot of it is that's just the style of play in the NFL right now. Is like if you're going to throw 45 passes a game, 12, 15 of them are going to go to your running back. So just have at it, and then part of it might be confidence.
Yeah.
Because other than Keenan Allen, the wide receiver situation is kind of muddy, and they've already lost the game because they couldn't trust their secondary wide receivers. So why not?
Any final thoughts? I mean, I don't want to worms here, but are there any specific games you're looking forward to, or?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not looking forward to this Thursday game coming up because
I will not.
After opening week, it goes back to Thursday being the dumping ground. But I'm interested in Chiefs Steelers because I need to see week 2 from both of those teams. I'm interested in. I'm a little bit interested in Brown Saints just because.
Very interested, and I thought you would be huge on that game because of Gordon.
Yeah, well, I'm just scrolling now. I'm just scrolling right now. Vikings Packers will be interesting. I want to see how Aaron Rodgers' leg looks.
Yeah,
I want to see if he's healthy and if it turns out Green Bay can count on all of Adams, Cobb, and Geronimo Allison. Could that offense be potent enough to compete with Minnesota, which is a more well-rounded team? We'll see. I'm interested. How about you?
Yeah, but I like it all, man, except for that Thursday. I always remember every year on week 2, the Thursday night game is like some really bad AFC North game. Okay. Every year, I remember.
All right, so let's end with this. Actually, I have a question for you. So in my Superflex Points Bonanza, everybody plays league.
Okay.
I have a choice now. So you can play quarterback as your offensive position player, right? So I have Mahomes as my quarterback. Do I play for my spare bonus offensive player? Do I play Derrick Henry or do I play Joe Flacco, who's playing on Thursday in Cincinnati?
And PPR doesn't really matter in this scenario.
Right.
That's a good question. Okay, so Derrick Henry against the Texans, right?
Derrick Henry, home to the Texans, yes.
Oh, I would pick Flacco, dude.
You pick Flacco?
Yeah, because not that Andrew Luck is Joe Flacco, but Andrew Luck had a decent game against the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
I think, not to say that the Flacco's hot right now, but it looks like he has good connections with John Brown, Michael Crabtree very early on.
Yeah.
I would ride with Flacco.
I've been down on the Bengals, and I think that the fact that they beat Indianapolis is no great accomplishment. That's maybe one of those games that they're going to win this year. I don't like the idea of Flacco on the road on a Thursday.
No one wants to see Joe Flacco.
I don't like the idea of owning fantasy players. I don't like the idea of starting fantasy players who are playing in a Ravens Bengals NFL game. The fact that he's a quarterback means he has more potential for points than a timeshare running back who's coming off a really garbage week 1.
I would roll with Flacco, and I'm thinking about it. It's not that it's not even close, but obviously, I think the Titans want to get a lot out of Deion Lewis early in the season.
I don't think that because if they try to get a lot out of him early, then they won't have him later in the season. I think we saw Lewis so much in week 1 because the whole offense went to shit.
Yeah.
And guys, I'm swearing a lot on this episode. I'm sorry.
One great argument for Henry is that if Mariota is not 100%, he may be leaning on the running game a lot more and leaning more on Henry.
Yeah, and I think, man, like he's gonna get a rhythm going if he doesn't have to stop playing every 90 minutes. Like he's a better player than that. The line's a better line than that. Like he's not gonna rush 10 yards to 26 yards. He's not, man. He had a big touchdown called back. The Texans are a good team, but they're not that good a team. No. They're not so well coached that you think they can just roll into a place like Tennessee and win.
They're not the Jaguars.
They're not, and yeah, I mean that's the thing. I never thought I'd speak that highly of Doug Marrone, but you're right. He's a good coach. He makes teams pretty good, right? But like, I don't know, man. I can see Derrick Henry. It's weird because So, okay, Joe Flacco obviously has a higher ceiling because he's a quarterback. Who has the higher floor, Derrick Henry or Joe Flacco?
I still think Flacco has the higher floor.
You think he has a higher floor? You don't think that there's a 112-yard, 3-interception game on the road in Cincinnati in him?
I think that a road team in the week 2 on the Thursday, probably not the best situation for any NFL team, but they did play Buffalo last week, which means that it was kind of a cakewalk. I know they kind of let Alex Collins sit there and rest for most of the game.
Well, that's why I like Collins. I like Collins on Thursday.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
They were convenient. They were able to punish him for fumbling because they were up so big and they were rolling. But really, it was just like, let's keep you healthy. And then lo and behold, Kenneth Dixon got hurt in his place. So it's like,
well, the Bengals don't scare me. Who's got a higher floor? I would say Joe Flacco. Flacco has a better floor.
Okay, that's something to think about. I'm not sure I agree with the floor part of it. But I don't know how confident I can be in Derrick Henry either, right? So you might as well, I guess, lean towards the guy who played well in week 1 versus the guy who played poorly in week 1. Or would that be overreacting to both those guys? And should I go with Henry and not Flacco? I don't know. Viewers,
I say ride the Ravens while they're quote unquote hot. I mean, I know it was Buffalo, but I think Flacco has a couple of guys that he likes throwing to.
So you just think that Baltimore has too many decent enough weapons all over the field to cover everybody?
Yeah, I do. I think Andy Dalton's also very vulnerable to a good Ravens defense.
Yeah.
I think the Ravens will turn the ball over. Hopefully they don't score on the turnover, and I think Flacco could be the guy that reaps some benefits.
Honestly, man, the only thing that prevents me from thinking the Ravens are just going to roll in, they're a better organization, they're a better team, they're going to steamroll the Bengals, who are garbage, is then I would be exhibiting faith in Joe Flacco on the road on a Thursday night. And that's hard. That's hard.
So. Henry against the Texans. But anyways, that's a decision we'll see. Maybe we'll tweet out. Maybe you'll tweet out what you ended up doing.
Well, first somebody tweet at me and tell me what I should do.
Yeah, someone and someone give me some help. But I got to go put these FFPC bids in, and we're about 40 minutes in. 42.
Okay. All right, so we should probably wrap it up here. Guys, thank you very much for joining us once again. Jeff, are we ready to take it out?
Yes, I'm ready to go.
Okay, so give me 1 second.
Problemo. Thanks a lot, guys. We would love any sort of feedback. If you want
to. It's trickling in. We got people commenting on it. We got people replying to our tweets, commenting on our videos. Give us your opinions. I'm interested. We want the chatter. We are just two idiots. We don't know what we're talking about. Join us in not knowing what you're talking about, too. Come on.
And we're also here to give you some advice from the unintangibles. So
that's right. All right, guys. So let me take you out of here. Thank you very much for joining us on the Unintangibles. We hope you enjoyed the show. We will be back on Monday. Hope to see you there.